evening and Merry Christmas. In honor of one of mine and my sister's favorite Christmas traditions, I will be reading a Golden Book Christmas bedtime story. Tonight we'll be reading The Littlest Christmas Elf. The Littlest Christmas Elf by Nancy Buss, illustrated by Terry Super. Alistair the elf was excited. Today he was leaving for the North Pole. The whole village of Elven Corners had come to say goodbye. Even the mayor was there. "This year Santa has sent for our merriest elf to join his workshop," said the mayor. "We will miss Alistair's songs and stories, yet Santa needs the best, and our Alistair is a very special elf." But when Alistair arrived at the North Pole, he hadn't felt special at all. He was the littlest elf there. He was so tiny that the head elf, McCafferty, couldn't find a job for him. McCafferty gave Alistair a wagon to build, but Alistair was too small to hammer. He gave him a dollhouse to paint, but Alistair couldn't reach the roof. He gave him some bears to stuff, but that didn't work either. "He's buried beneath them," said the elf in charge of the bears. McCafferty shook his head. "Just 2 weeks until Christmas. And still we have so much work to do. We have to find you a job. Perhaps you can sweep." But even the broom was too big for Alistair, and the other elves began to laugh. "Why, he's just a runt," said one of the elves. He poked a friend and giggled. "He's smaller than I am," said another, who stuck out his tongue. "Absolutely useless," said the third. "Santa should send him away." Alistair blinked his eyes quickly so he wouldn't cry. "I don't belong here," he thought. "I'm so little, even Santa won't like me." He pushed through the crowd and ran away from the room. "But Santa won't send me away," said Alistair, "because he will never see me." Alistair kept running until he found a perfect place to hide, down behind the woodpile in the back of the reindeer pen. It was there that Alistair found a friend. "My name's Nicholas," said the old elf, peering over the woodpile. "What's yours?" Alistair answered in a whisper. Nicholas shook his hand. "I'm glad to know you," he said. "Would you like to help me with the reindeer?" When Alistair nodded, Nicholas lifted him up to his shoulders, and the two of them chattered and sang while they fed and watered the reindeer. Alistair was so happy to find a friend that he returned to the reindeer pen the next day, and the next. Nicholas never minded if Alistair asked questions, and he never told Alistair he was too small to help. While Nicholas cleaned out the stalls, Alistair fed the reindeer apples. While Nicholas brushed the reindeer's coat, Alistair polished the harness bells, and all the while he told Nicholas stories, and together they sang to the reindeer. But one morning, Nicholas was gone. Someone else was hauling the water. Someone else was cleaning the pen. "Where's Nicholas?" Alistair asked. "Nicholas, indeed," said a grumpy old elf who was busily swinging a pitchfork. "He's up in the big house. Now go away. I have work to do." The big house, Alistair thought. But that's where Santa lives. Nicholas must be sick. He must be very sick if he's staying with Santa. And though he thought of his friend in that big scary house, and the thought of his friend in that big scary house sent Alistair scurrying home to find the safety of his bed. But he didn't sleep. He was worried about Nicholas, and he missed him so much he knew he would have to see him. The next morning, Alistair packed a basket of fruit and started out for a visit. But the nearer he got to Santa's house, the slower his steps became. Finally, he stopped completely, behind a Christmas tree in Santa's front yard. His heart was beating loudly. Suddenly the door opened, and Alistair, more frightened than ever, dived beneath the pine tree. He heard footsteps, and he buried his head under his arms. The footsteps came closer and closer. Alistair was afraid to breathe. He closed his eyes tightly and prayed no one would see him. But someone jiggled his foot. "Hey there," said the voice. "You're not hurt, are you?" Alistair let out a long, slow breath. He peeked up from under his arms. It was Nicholas! Alistair scurried out from under the tree and gave his friend a hug. "Well, it's Alistair." I've missed you. And how are my reindeer? The week before Christmas is so busy, I don't have time to take care of them. Come inside and talk to me. And before Alistair could say a word, his friend had hoisted him to his shoulders and begun walking towards the house. No, no, Alistair cried. I can't go in there. Put me down. He wiggled and squirmed so much that the old elf did. Can't go in. Where? Said Nicholas. Alistair pointed towards the house. And why not, may I ask? Because Santa won't like me and he'll send me home. Why, he wouldn't do that, said Nicholas. Because I'm little and I can't do anything right and... The old elf interrupted. Why, that's nonsense, he said. You're a big help to me. In fact, I have a special job just for you. A special job? Asked Alistair. For me? Exactly right, said Nicholas. You're coming with me this year to make my deliveries. Deliveries? Alistair said. Alistair. The toys for the children on Christmas Eve, said Nicholas. You see, it's a long trip and I get very lonely. But you could come along with me, Alistair. You're so small, you'll fit in the sleigh. And you could tell me stories and we could sing songs just like we do in the reindeer pen. Alistair's mouth dropped open. His eyes got big and round. You're Santa Claus! His friend bowed, as also known as Saint Nicholas. Alistair began to back away. Then he stopped and grinned. But I'm not afraid of you. I'm glad, said the old elf. Will you come with me on Christmas Eve? Oh, yes, said Alistair. That's exactly what he did, and it was the best Christmas Eve Alistair or Santa had ever had. The end. Good night and Merry Christmas.